Imagine this. You have a pounding headache in medieval times. But instead of reaching for painkillers, your doctor decides the best solution is to drill a hole in your skull to let the bad spirits out. Yes, you heard that right. Welcome to the bizarre, horrifying, and sometimes downright hilarious world of medieval medicine. From bloodletting with leeches to boiling herbs under a full moon for magical healing, the remedies of the past were as strange as they were terrifying. Some treatments were based on superstition, others on pure desperation, and a few, believe it or not, actually worked. Today, we're diving deep into some of the most outrageous, mind-boggling, and spine-chilling medical practices from history. By the end of this video, you'll be thanking your lucky stars for modern medicine. So buckle up. It's about to get medieval. Let's begin. But here's the wildest part. Many of these treatments weren't just random experiments. They were trusted medical procedures used by doctors for centuries. Whether it was using moldy bread as an early form of antibiotics or prescribing ground-up mummies as a cure-all, medieval healers truly believed they were onto something. So could any of these bizarre practices have actually had some merit? Stay tuned to find out. Got migraines, seizures, feeling possessed? No problem. Medieval doctors had the perfect solution, drilling a hole in your skull to release the evil spirits lurking inside. As terrifying as this sounds, trepanation was widely practiced across different cultures for thousands of years. From ancient Peru to medieval Europe, this brutal procedure was believed to cure anything from epilepsy to insanity. Using crude tools like hand drills, chisels, and even sharp stones, healers would bore a hole straight into the patient's skull, without anesthesia. Shockingly, some people actually survived and even showed signs of healing, as evidenced by ancient skulls with regrown bone tissue. Others, unsurprisingly, didn't make it. But what's even wilder? Trepanation is still practiced today. In some modern alternative medicine circles, there are those who believe drilling a hole in the skull can increase consciousness or relieve pressure on the brain. The real question is, how did people even endure the pain? It's believed that alcohol, herbal mixtures, or even simple hypnosis were used as primitive anesthetics. However, in many cases, patients had no choice but to bear the excruciating agony while the procedure was carried out. The idea of someone remaining conscious while having their skull drilled open is beyond horrifying. Feeling under the weather? No worries, just drain some blood. Medieval doctors were convinced that most illnesses were caused by imbalanced humors in the body, and the quickest way to restore balance was to let the bad blood flow. This gruesome practice wasn't just for serious diseases. People were bled for fevers, colds, infections, headaches, indigestion, and even the plague. If a patient was weak, doctors believed it was because their body had too much blood. So, out came the knives, and in some cases, leeches were used for a gentler approach. And if you think this was limited to the lower class, think again. Physicians weren't the only ones performing these procedures. Barbers doubled as medical practitioners. Yes, the same person who gave you a fresh haircut might also slice open your vein. In fact, the classic red and white barber pole is said to represent blood and bandages from their medical side business. Despite its obvious dangers, like, bleeding to death, bloodletting remained popular for centuries. It wasn't until the 19th century that doctors finally started realizing that draining blood might not be the best way to cure disease. But shockingly, bloodletting is still used today in some medical treatments, like for conditions such as hemochromatosis. So next time you have a cold, just be glad your doctor isn't reaching for a blade or a jar of leeches. Imagine this. You're a medieval soldier, wounded by an arrow in the heat of battle. You're bleeding in pain and desperately need medical attention. What do the battlefield doctors do? Gently clean and dress the wound? Give you pain relief? Nope. Instead, they pour boiling oil directly into the open wound to sterilize it. The idea was that hot oil would cauterize the wound, sealing it off from infection. In reality, this brutal practice often caused severe burns, agonizing pain, and even more damage to the body. If you somehow survived the procedure, you were still at high risk of developing a massive infection. And if oil wasn't available, molten metal, scalding water, or even hot tar were sometimes used instead. Medieval doctors genuinely believed that extreme heat was the best way to prevent illness, completely unaware that they were often making things worse. It wasn't until the 1500s that a French surgeon named Ambroise Paré discovered a less horrific alternative: After running out of boiling oil on the battlefield, he treated wounds with a soothing mix of egg yolk, oil of roses, and turpentine instead. And to his surprise, his patients healed better and suffered far less pain. This breakthrough eventually led to more humane and effective treatments, though it took centuries for the practice of cauterization to fully disappear. So, next time you complain about a tiny paper cut, just be grateful that no one is standing by with a pot of boiling oil. Mental illness in the medieval era was widely misunderstood. People suffering from conditions like schizophrenia, depression, or epilepsy were often seen as possessed, cursed, or even criminals. Instead of therapy or medication, medieval doctors and healers relied on brutal and bizarre methods to cure insanity. One of the most common treatments? Ice-cold baths. The idea was that shocking the body with extreme cold would reset the mind. Patients were often forcibly submerged in freezing water, sometimes for hours at a time, in the hope that their madness would simply be washed away. If they resisted, they were held down until they stopped struggling, and if the cold didn't cure them, the methods got even darker. Many patients were locked in straitjackets, chained to walls, or confined to tiny coffin-like beds for months or even years. Others were subjected to exorcisms, forced fasting, or violent beatings under the belief that demons or bad spirits were causing their condition. For those deemed completely incurable, life could be even worse. Some were cast out of society, abandoned in asylums with horrific conditions, or, in extreme cases, executed for being possessed. The fear and ignorance surrounding mental health meant that countless people suffered immense cruelty instead of the care they truly needed. Makes you appreciate modern mental health care, right? And there you have it, the wildest, weirdest, and most terrifying medieval medical treatments. From bloodletting and boiling oil, to drilling holes in skulls and sniffing animal dung, it's safe to say that medicine has come a long way since the Middle Ages. The next time you complain about taking medicine or getting a vaccine, just remember, at least your doctor isn't sawing off limbs without anesthesia or forcing you to drink mercury as a cure. Which one shocked you the most? Did any of these make you queasy, or do you think you could have survived medieval medicine? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's most bizarre and gruesome medical practices, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss out on more insane history facts. We've got plenty more shocking, weird, and fascinating topics coming your way. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and be very glad you weren't born in the Middle Ages.